All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're looking at a pretty wild blueprint that surfaced from the fringes of science, a design for a device called the MAGVID. And its purpose? Well, it's nothing less than trying to manipulate space-time itself.
This quote right here really sets the stage. It comes from a man named Colonel James Stevens, who is supposedly involved in some pretty advanced military programs. The core idea isn't about using brute force like a giant rocket. It's about something much more subtle, changing the very frequency of an object's existence to make it immune to gravity.
So, that's the big question, isn't it? Are we just looking at an incredibly detailed piece of science fiction? Or is this a genuine, theoretical blueprint for a technology that could completely rewrite the laws of physics as we know them? Let's break it all down.
Okay, so to even begin to wrap our heads around the MAGVID, we've got to start with a concept from the legend himself, Nikola Tesla. We're talking about the rotating magnetic field. It's the foundation of pretty much every electric motor out there. But this theory, well, it takes that idea into a whole other dimension.
Now check this out, because this is a really important evolution. On the left, you've got Tesla's original concept, which used a literal, physical spinning magnet. But the real game changer, which you see on the right, was figuring out how to get that same rotating field with zero moving parts, just by pulsing electricity through stationary coils in a perfect sequence. That little trick is absolutely crucial for what comes next.
And here's where the whole idea just veers off the road of conventional engineering. See, with no actual moving parts, this virtual field isn't limited by physical stress. There's no centrifugal force that's going to tear it apart. That means you could theoretically spin this field at speeds that would just obliterate any chunk of metal. We're talking millions, maybe even billions of RPM. And that is the fundamental idea behind the MAGVID.
But before we get to the MAGVID's design, we need to take a little detour and look at a real, documented weirdness in physics that this theory supposedly exploits. It's called Faraday's paradox, and it's a perfect example of how even 19th century electromagnetism has secrets we still haven't figured out. This little thing right here is at the heart of the mystery. It's called a homopolar generator. Looks super simple, right? It's just a metal disc spinning inside a magnetic field. It was one of the very first electric generators ever, but the way it works still has physicists scratching their heads.
Okay, let's walk through this, because this is where it gets really strange. Case 1, the disk spins, the magnet stays put. The moving disk cuts through the magnetic field lines, and boom, you get a voltage. Makes perfect sense. But now look at case 2. The disk is still, and the magnet spins. Now you'd think the field lines are still sweeping past the disk, so you'd get a voltage. But you don't. Nothing. And then there's case 3. The real kicker. The disk and the magnet are locked together, spinning as one solid piece. There is zero relative motion between them. And yet, you still get a voltage. How is that possible?
And that right there is the mind-bending implication. It's as if the magnetic field isn't actually attached to the physical magnet. It's like it has its own independent stationary reference point in space, regardless of what the magnet is doing. This one bizarre idea is what the entire MAGVID theory is built on.
So how does the MAGVID blueprint propose to actually use this weird little glitch in physics? Well, the whole design is engineered to grab that independent magnetic field and whip it into a powerful, incredibly structured vortex.
So here's the basic architecture. You've got two main parts. First, see those orange rings? Those represent the coils making that crazy fast virtual, rotating magnetic field. It's spinning on a flat, horizontal plane. Then you've got that big gray cylinder. That's creating a powerful, static magnetic field running vertically, straight through the middle. This combination, this perpendicular arrangement, is everything.
The theory says that when these two perpendicular fields interact, they create something called a double vortex. This isn't just a simple swirling motion. It supposedly forces electrons into this unbelievably complex pattern. It's like a whirlpool that is itself being bent into the shape of a donut, a vortex inside a larger vortex. An analyst named Matthias Baga came up with this really handy classification system to make sense of it. First-order movement is just an electron going in a simple circle. That's standard physics. You get magnetism and heat. Second order is when you stretch that circle out into a helix or a spring shape. But third order, that's the double vortex. And that's where the really exotic effects are supposed to kick in, a reduction in inertia and even gravity.
So why go to all this trouble to create this insane double vortex? What's the end game? According to the theory, it's to achieve a state of matter so extreme it gets its own name, hyperionization.
And this is the most extraordinary claim of them all.
The theory suggests this double vortex creates a kind of shield that locally disconnects the matter inside it from the Higgs field. You know, the fundamental field in the standard model of physics that gives particles their mass? Yeah, that. Neutralizing its effect would, in theory, make an object massless.
And if you can actually reduce mass, well, the reported effects are just completely mind-bending. You're not just getting high voltage. You're getting a reduction in inertia, which would allow for impossible acceleration. You're getting time dilation, but weirdly, time is said to speed up inside the field. And the holy grail, of course, is the potential for faster-than-light travel.
Now, the MAGVID might sound like some totally isolated wild idea, but what's really interesting is that it's actually part of a small family of other speculative devices that all seem to share some of its core ideas.
If you look at this table, you start to see a pattern emerge. You've got this Stephen Mark TPU, the Bob Boyce TPS. They're all playing with similar ingredients. They all involve rotating fields, often pulsed, and often combined with some kind of static or bias field. The claimed results are different, but the mechanics, there's an intriguing overlap with the MAGVID.
And that really gets to the shared philosophy behind all of this research. It's the belief that maybe we've been looking at the problem all wrong, that we've been so focused on magnitude, on just raw power. These theories all suggest the real secrets are hidden in geometry, in frequency, and in the very specific shape of the fields.
So after digging through paradoxes of classical physics and the blueprints for a machine that claims to rewrite them, we're really just left with one final unavoidable question.
Look, the journey from Faraday's simple little disk to the complex geometry of a double vortex, it's a massive leap. Whether it's a leap of genius or just a leap of fantasy, we don't know. But it really forces you to ask, if our understanding of something as basic as a spinning magnet is still incomplete, what other fundamental things about our universe might we have completely missed?